Hi everyone, welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon DeMint.
And I'm Julian Taylor.
And welcome to our podcast.
Hello and welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. My name's Julian Taylor and I'm joined as usual by my follically challenged friend, Langdon DeMint. Langdon, do you want to say hello?
Hey everyone, how are you, Jules?
I am good. Yep. Now, today we're joined by a couple of very special guests, and by way of introduction, what I'm going to tell you is a bit of a story. And the story is that I went to a safety show before COVID, before the world went mad. I went to a safety show, and if I tell you that there were lots of speakers coming on and off stage that week, and I can't remember who any of them are apart from our guests of today because they were just memorable. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but they were a more elderly couple, not the usual sort of demographic for speaking at safety shows, but they came up on stage and they told their story, and their story is absolutely memorable. So we are delighted that they can join us today to go through that story again, because we think it's a really powerful one. It's also a really important message that we think we need to keep alive. We need to keep that message out there. So delighted to be joined today by Mavis and Ray Nye. So do you want to say hello, guys?
Hi.
Hi. It's nice to be here.
Great. It's really good to have you both here. Now, I think to start with, Mavis, I suppose my first question is, you've got this handsome young gentleman sitting next to you. When did you first meet him?
Right, so
Ray's looking around to find out who I'm talking about here.
I first met Ray in 1957. I was just a very young 15-year-old. And
He was in the youth club.
yeah, sorry, I couldn't think of it. It's our local youth club. I'd actually ditched a boyfriend that night, so I felt a bit naughty. But I said hi to this guy playing a piano, and that's how our story all started.
Well, I didn't know about the boy, you just did.
Ray's just found out something he's not known for the last 70 odd years. Okay. Yeah. So you met one another, and I presume things kind of moved on from there because you're still together. You're still sitting there together today. And when did you get married, Mavis?
In 1960, at Luton in Chatham.
1960, yep.
It was just because that was where the youth club was, at the in Luton, Chatham.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how we met.
Okay. So you met in Chatham, and Chatham for our sort of American listeners is in Kent in the south of England. And when you got married, what was Ray doing work-wise, Mavis?
Right, he was in Chatham Dockyard, and he was a shipwright apprentice.
No, when we got married, I was a shipwright.
He was a shipwright. Sorry, he's correcting me.
So Ray was a shipwright. Ray, just to help us out. Yeah. Just to help us out, Ray, what does a shipwright do?
Shipwright basically repairs and refurbishes Royal Naval ships. So if they want cabins moved, extended, yeah.
No, carry on, yeah.
I was going to say, if they want cabins moved or added or extended or whatever, any modifications on board ship, basic repairs. Sometimes they come in for a total refit where they would gut everything from stem to stern, and shipwright's job would be to lay out the floors, deckheads, bulkheads, and rebuild the ship.
Cool. So Chatham, again, for those who don't know, is
The Royal Naval Dockyard.
Yeah. And my father worked there.
how many men were working in that?
When I first went in, It was just over 13,000.
So, 13,000 men working in there, yeah?
Yeah, that's all trades, all trades.
So basically, what you're telling us, Ray, you were working on the ships. They come in, they strip the ships out, and then you would start to do your job. And I suppose that's starting to take us to what we were going to talk about today, which is what were some of the materials that they were stripping out of the ships?
Basically, it would be metal bulkheads and asbestos, really.
Yep.
So basically, that's all the ships are made of, iron and bits of wood and asbestos. Well, obvious things like linoleum and things like that. But yeah, predominantly everything's covered in asbestos.
So I think a memorable part of your story when I was listening to you talking was you told the story about how you used to sit and eat your lunch out of your lunch tin in the middle of the workplace as well.
Yeah.
And what were the conditions like working in there? What was it like? What was the quality of the air like, for example?
Well, just a few days into a refit, we'd have had gangs of guys with their pneumatic hammers chipping off the asbestos from pipes and trunking or wherever it is, so that the fitters could take the pipes down and replace them. Shipwrights would replace new trunking, and then the laggers would come along and cover them all with asbestos again, the new ones. But basically, the air quality was terrible.
So full of dust, full of fibres, yeah. Okay. And Mavis, meanwhile you're at home. How did this affect you? Sort of what Ray was doing?
Not at that age. This was when I was 15 when I met Ray, and so he went away. He went away for 2 years in the national service, and when we came back, we got married, and so we got married in 1960, and we had our first child in 1961. So that I was filling up, really enjoying myself, going out with my mates, and he was there in with the army. Yeah.
But when you got married, you would sort of have Ray coming home from work, and you would clean his work clothes. Is that right?
That's when we got married. Yeah. When I then took over the washing from his mother, and I had a washing machine where she had the old dolly. What do you call it? The dolly.
Yeah, and the washboard.
Washboard. So. And so, I did all the washing as he came home. I just shook all the clothes and the dust would fall off. I would shake it out of his hair. We just did not know that was a danger to us.
Okay, so you were shaking Ray to get it out of his hair and shaking his clothes to get it off his clothes before you washed them. Yeah.
Ray, for you, was there any, I guess when you were going through that, was there any maybe cognizance or even a second thought about everything that, from the dust? Assumingly no, if you're eating around it. I mean, it's just a part of work, right?
Yeah, basically, it was just part of everyday working life. Nobody ever even hinted to us that going on board ship would be hazardous because of that asbestos. And if you wanted to take a walk around the shipyard, you would find skips topped up, spilling over with asbestos that's been taken off various ships, and the wind would blow the dust off of that. So really, it was everywhere, and we never had any warning. I mean, the reason I left the yard eventually was because, having spent 2 years in the army, where everything's washed at double speed and everything's got to be immaculate, ready for inspection, I got used to an area that was clean and unhazardous. And going back, I spent just over a year contemplating the filth, the dust, the noise, and I decided to leave. I didn't decide to leave because I found out that asbestos was dangerous, because that didn't come really till years later. It was just the basic filthy, noisy environment. And if I'd have known about the asbestos, I would never have gone in there in the first place.
So you managed to get out, and I think you had a bit of an argument, didn't you, with the boss who was telling you were going to be back with your tail between your legs very quickly.
Yeah, I remember his comments clearly. After I'd written out my notice and passed it through my charge hand, and it got to the department manager, who called me up, and he said, "It's not too late to change your mind, son. That's all I got to do is tear this notice up, all right? You can get back to work." And I said, "No thanks." And I often say, that was over 60 years ago, and I hope he's not still waiting, because he said, "You'll be back." They all do.
He's waiting by the gate for you. Yeah. So if we fast forward, then I suppose you left the shipyard, and really the effects of that didn't really come home to roost, did they, until a long time later? Mavis, do you want to tell us when you first sort of realised there was a problem?
49 years ago, yeah.
49 years later.
49 years later, sorry, yeah. We went to Spain. We went to Spain on holiday because we'd retired, and we bought a motorhome. And I didn't know, I was enjoying the sun, staying with my son in his villa. We were having a lot of fun. And when I got home, I found one day I couldn't breathe. And it was just like that. It turned on, and I just couldn't breathe at all. And so the doctor said to me, "You better have an X-ray, or a scan." So I went in for the scan, and
they said it was a trapped ulnar nerve, and it could be a chest infection. And in the meantime, we were going to cross the road one morning to vote on voting day, and Mavis collapsed in the street, and she was gasping at me, "Take me home, I can't breathe, take me home." And I managed to get her home. Fortunately, we were just round the corner. And I phoned up our GP, and he said, "I'm looking at the results of your recent scan. There's a bed waiting for you in Medway. Get yourself there now." Medway was our local Medway hospital. So I managed to get her there, and they kept her in for over a week while they did all sorts of tests, growing cultures in dishes, checking it. And then on one of the visiting days, because I used to go every day, Mavis said, "The doctor's been in to see me, and he's got my results, and they're not good." And I told him I don't want to hear them yet, to wait till you come in this afternoon. So I went and found him, and I said, "Well, I'm back now, doctor. Do you want to come and give us these results?" And he came up to Maeve's bedside, and he said, "There are two things that we initially thought. Possibly your condition was a serious lung infection, or maybe mesothelioma. Well, actually, we've ruled out the lung infection. You have mesothelioma." "I am sorry." Well, we looked at him blank. Meso, what? We not only did we not know how to pronounce it, we'd never heard of it. And he said, "This mesothelioma, that's an asbestos-related terminal cancer. If there's anything else you wish to know, I'll be available. And he turned tail and left. And we were left to finish off that visiting hour, wondering what the hell meso was, and asbestos was ringing in my head. Asbestos, he said. And when I looked back, that was my time in the dockyard, and that was 49, nearly 50 years previous, wasn't it? So, yeah, that was Mavis's introduction to mesothelioma.
And what year was
2009.
2009? Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Was there any inclination between that time period of any adverse health effect
There was none.
prior to the trip to Spain?
No, there was nothing.
Where we were in Spain, we were right at the top of Benidorm, and it was a 4-mile walk downhill into Benidorm. And we were doing that every day for nearly 3 months, weren't we?
Yeah.
But on the walk back, initially, Mavis was stomping away. She would get up the hill, no thoughts, nothing. But as that 3 months progressed, she was having to rest at different places on that 4-mile walk back. And those rests were becoming more frequent, and the distance was becoming even less. So there was a problem beginning, but we weren't really aware of it, were we? And it wasn't until that day when she collapsed locally here in the street that things had moved on. But prior to that, no, there was no indication.
So it wasn't until I had my pleurodesis that we finally knew that it really was mesothelioma. I had that in Guy's Hospital.
Yeah.
And that's where they diagnosed mesothelioma. And so that was in 2009.
2009.
It's still 2010. We've gone into 2010 by then. Yeah, so that's when they put me on a lot of trials. Lucky enough, there were trials, but at the time, there was only chemotherapy. There was nothing else. So I happened to come along just as immunotherapy was about to start. And I was very pleased with that, grateful.
But it wasn't really much chemo for you anyway, was it?
No.
Because the doctor said it's a terminal cancer. There is no cure.
Because I think it was in 2014, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's when it was growing again from the chemotherapy. And Dean Fennell said to me, Mavis, if you get down to the Royal Marsden now, you can go on. There's a trial starting. I'd like to see you on that trial. And that's when immunotherapy came into the Royal Marsden. And there was 3 people, just 3 other people.
2 other people.
So
Yeah.
I'm the third one. There was two other people, including myself. And you took it.
There were 3 people on the trial.
Right, and the other 2 sadly have died. And I came through it completely. It was just a brilliant trial, and it was just a brilliant result. But I have, funny enough, this year, been able to talk to Merck and thank them for it. That was wonderful, wasn't it, to be able to say thanks.
And it's incredible, some of the work that's going on, isn't it? And it's...
Oh, yeah, now it's really, yeah. That's what they said at the time, that this encouraged the doctors, because mesothelioma had nothing for it at all. They couldn't find the answers. But I gave them that first proof that there was a way to treat it and there was a way to deal with it. And since then, immunotherapy has done so well.
It's not a cure, but it's...
No, it's not a cure.
How did I end up seeing you at a safety show, Mavis? Tell me a bit about your sort of journey in terms of understanding about mesothelioma and then becoming this... You call yourself the meso warrior, don't you?
Yeah, the meso warrior, yeah. I suddenly, because they gave me my life back, I wanted to give all the details I could possibly and help all the new people that were being diagnosed. And that's how I started. Really, I got onto the campaign of safety. Really, it's about safety. It's about looking after your lungs and protecting your lungs. And we've got so many wonderful companies doing that. They're helping out, aren't they? Really, I find that everyone's not doing it for themselves. They're all doing it for people, to help people. And I think we come across some wonderful people.
So you've become a real advocate in terms of sort of the health side of health and safety, and I suppose getting it out there that this is still a problem. It's still an issue with asbestos. It's sort of in the workplace, isn't it?
And that's why I was I got the Queen's Award, wasn't it? The BEM this last year, and I got that because gradually everyone was hearing my talk and they were enjoying it. So and realising I was out to help. So I started all the social media and helped out there, and it's just gone on and on and on. It's just been. I always say it sounds stupid, really, but if it wasn't for this disease, I wouldn't have had such a brilliant life. It's so stupid, really, but it's been wonderful. It's so wonderful to meet all these people.
And you've certainly got around, and I know my LinkedIn feed, Mavis. Sort of most weeks something comes up on my LinkedIn feed from Mavis Nye, and it might be sort of talking about the issues, or what I see a lot of the time is you promote when you've got pictures of people dumping asbestos and dealing with asbestos in the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah, my pet hate. Oh, yeah. If I wished I could be there one day and see someone. Yeah, I'd be out with a baseball, I think, smacking their asses.
And it's interesting because myself and Langdon, we did a webinar just yesterday, didn't we? And on there we had a bunch of health, sort of the HSE stats around health and ill health and injuries, sort of in recent years. I think was it right, Langdon? There's still 12,000 people a year dying from lung disease in the UK. So again, that's a kind of reflection of sort of some of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Ray, I know. A couple of other interesting and sad facts are: was it your father, Mavis, who died from the same disease?
Yeah, my brother's also died of lung cancer. So and so much of it gets misdiagnosed as just a lung cancer. So even my
my mum, she died.
Mother-in-law,
peritoneal.
So it's because where we lived, Chatham, it was a hot spot.
So Chatham, there's an intrinsic link, isn't there, between the dockyard and it being a cancer hotspot?
Yeah, and shipping.
And shipping. And I was going to say as well, Ray, you've talked about your reunion. Where how many? I think you talked about the apprentices that you started with, and they had a reunion, and I think you were the only one left, or they were trying to have a reunion.
Well, I was a couple of years back, and I wanted to find out how many of there was 42 of us boys in my entry, and I wanted to know so I could get in contact with any of them to find out whether they'd all or managed to escape this dreaded thing or not. And the only way I could get any information was via somebody who runs the museum in there and keeps the records. And I said, out of the 42 of us guys in May 53, how many have you got on your list? And he said, I'm afraid at the moment you're the only one that seems to be left, which totally surprised me. I mean, I haven't got meso like Mavis, but I've got scarring and what is it they call it? And pockets.
Pockets, air pockets.
Air pockets and scarring in my lung, which, touch wood, have not gone full mesothelioma. And I don't, in honesty, know how many of those 42 guys have actually died of mesothelioma or any other diseases, but it just seems absolutely stunning to me that why am I the only one left? And they won't give me information on the other entries before and after me, just for some sort of comparison. But when I go onto Facebook, which I've been doing for quite a while, not one of my guys ever publish anything or comment on anything. So I don't know.
It's frightening, isn't it? It's frightening numbers, and it's frightening what was sort of going on, and people took it for granted that was the way that we worked without really being aware of what it was doing. And I think there's the scary thing, Langdon, you maybe want to comment on this as well, is that there's probably other substances. I know we've had silica issues, and I know there's things like the use of MDF, which is used massively in the construction of things like kitchens. And again, there's I think, I don't know whether it's been confirmed, but there's the fact that could be carcinogenic, the dust that's coming out of MDF, and you just wonder what's the next thing. What does that tell us as safety professionals? What do we need to be thinking about?
I'm going to say, when we spoke last time, I don't know, did we mention nanotubes? Does that ring a bell to you?
You did mention nanotubes. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Oh, right. Because we were at one of those Mavis's conference things, and we were talking to somebody there who'd given a talk that these high-rise buildings with all glass fronts, he said that we're not aware that as the wind blows, those glass panels flex and they drop out these nanotubes, which drop down to path level, and people walking by in the street below are breathing in these nanotubes, and the result of that is just as lethal as asbestos. To me, I find that very difficult to digest, but apparently nanotubes is the next thing.
So that's frightening, isn't it? So the cladding on the front of buildings, and it's just natural weather conditions is causing the issue. So, and I think again, it sort of starts to say something, Langdon, doesn't it, about actually. I remember a friend who had a kitchen manufacturing business, and you would go in there and the air was full of dust. Nobody wore any kind of respiratory protection. There was no kind of extraction systems. It just says, as businesses, you've got to be cognizant of sort of air quality, because we don't know what the future holds, do we?
And that's the scary thing. And I know, Mavis, Ray, we talked about that a few weeks ago. There are just so many chemicals that are, whether they're a direct runoff from a manufacturing procedure or, to your experience with cleanup, whatever it is, there's so many chemicals, whether it's combustible dust, whatever, and they're having the lasting effect. And the more that, organizations, if they're not monitoring, if they're not providing some type of PPE or any type of minimization of those, you have things like this where we kind of forget about a lot of times the health side. Mavis, I mean, you said 40 plus years, and Ray, I don't know what time span between your exposure to when you even started having some difficulty, but you're talking 30, 40 years when the trouble began. And think of how many others could be going through something similar, whether it's from asbestos or silicosis or, whatever it is, whatever type of carcinogenic adverse effect. You're still talking about things that you might be fine for 5 years, you might be fine for 10 years, 20 years, but then when it hits, it's very troublesome. I think that's a scary thing to consider.
I think it's been one of the issues for a long time with the whole health and safety conversation, hasn't it? Which is safety. If something goes wrong with safety, it's immediate and we see it straight away. The problem with health is we don't see it, do we? We don't see it. It's not that immediate sort of visibility that makes people think I need to do something to protect myself here. So I think that's been one of the ongoing issues. So maybe you look like you wanted to chip in then.
Oh, I was going to say, it messes your whole life up. I mean, all right, we've been lucky and we've got through retirement, but it's terrible. We had everything planned. It was being planned and it was being put in place. We wanted to buy a motorhome, retire, sell our house, buy a motorhome. We was going to spend winters in the
sun.
In the sun, yeah, winters in the sun, and summers in the winter. Summer, go cooler. But yeah, so everything was planned. Everything was worked out on paperwork, and it didn't. It fell to bits. So
what she hasn't actually said to you today is she's got up out of bed today, especially to do this, because she's been in bed nearly 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And after 66 years together,
Yep.
It's been terrifying because I have never, ever, ever seen her anywhere near this condition. It's really got a grip now, and
yeah, it is. I've got coming out in all lumps and bumps everywhere, and it's really going for it. But somehow, I don't know. I seem to get on top of it a bit each time, and I'm still fighting it.
And I've got to say, we're absolutely humbled, Mavis, because the reason you're on today is you sort of reached out on LinkedIn saying, even though you were sort of in home hospice care, you were still really one of your life sort of reasons was to keep getting this message out there about mesothelioma, about health in the workplace, and still keep getting your message across. So we're just really humbled that you've made this effort to talk to us today, because we know it is an effort.
I've always said you could never shut me up.
Yeah. Ray did quietly tell me that on the side, Mavis.
I bet he did. Yeah.
So I think, I mean, just reflecting on your sort of retirement plans there, I suppose you never expected to, when you were sort of spending that time in Spain all those years ago, to end up then traveling around the world, because I think you have traveled around the world, going to health and safety shows and talking about lung disease.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we just missed BTOG, haven't we?
Yes, I couldn't go to BTOG. And apart from anything else, whether you was fit enough or not, the expense to travel, once you've got anything wrong, and if you're being treated, that's even worse, because then they bump it right up.
Yeah, we're not talking hundreds insurance, it was thousands.
Yeah.
It was just not economically viable, even if she'd have managed to get out of bed.
Yeah, you struggle to get insurance, and then it makes travel a really difficult thing, doesn't it? Yeah.
Everything becomes expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am really sort of conscious, Mavis, that you're sort of not well and you've made an effort to do this. So I don't want to keep on going for too long, but
I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, but I just really wanted to thank you for coming on today. I think your message is massively important, that asbestos is still an issue, and health in the workplace is a massive issue. And it helps to really sort of make people stop and think about, can we do things differently? Can we do things better? Langdon, I don't know whether you want to sort of add to that.
Yeah, no, I think Mavis Ray, more than are grateful for your joining us in discussion, because for me, and it's what we talked about last time, we don't realize a lot of times the adverse health effects that come to us if we're in the workplace, but then also the potential for the ones, loved ones around us and family, how that can adversely affect them too. It's, powerful to hear that. And albeit this wasn't the way you foresaw your retirement going, it's something, I will say, a testament to also to the power that you've had, because I know that your story and the situation that you've experienced has honestly, it's probably applicable to a lot more than you think. And whether it is asbestos or any other carcinogenic chemical, your story really has a opportunity to touch and help prevent a lot of others. So more than grateful, and we definitely appreciate it.
I think if there's any kind of positive silver lining, Mavis, you can sort of rest assured that you've had a massive impact on hundreds, if not thousands, of people with the way that you tell your story and go out and get it out there. So we need to say thank you to Ray, and we need to say thank you to the Meso Warrior, because your story's been sort of really interesting to hear, and it's a really powerful story as well, Mavis. So thank you.
I would like to say, I'll give the plug now, that I sort of have started my own foundation. So please find the Mavis Nye Foundation and please donate. We need money I want to leave a big legacy. I know that everyone keeps saying, oh, you've left a legacy already, but no, I really want money. You've got to throw money at these things, and you've got to help people.
So what we'll do, Mavis, if you want to, we'll get those details off you, and we'll publish those out as well through our LinkedIn feed, and obviously through the podcast as well. And hopefully we can sort of add to those funds for you. That's the very least that we can do. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Mavis and Ray, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for giving us your time today, and the best of luck for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
and keep your lungs safe.
Yeah.
We certainly will try to do that, Mavis. Thank you.
Hey everyone, really appreciate you tuning into this episode of Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. Please follow and subscribe to wherever you stream your favorite podcast, or visit us at evotics.com.
And if you want to see how follically challenged we really are, come and check us out on YouTube. If you've got value from the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, and in the review section of this podcast, if you could leave us a review or a rating, that would be great.
And as always, everyone, while you're going about your days and about your normal lives, stay safe out there and watch each other's back.